We did this one well, guys. Super fantastic.
Honestly, I was like legitimately waiting for like one of us to like learn the violin or like become a master painter or like something, but we didn't get that part.
That is one thing I love about Legends of Tomorrow when they did the time loop, is that she took the time, Zari took the time to learn the violin, and I thought that was so cool. And then after the episode, she went to see if she could actually play the violin, and she could. So I liked that aspect where in that show, it was so cool.
It like tied it to reality and like made it so it wasn't a dream. But the same thing happens with Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, right? Like he goes and like becomes a pianist and like does the whole thing. I'm just like, there's also like
he becomes the hero of the town.
There's a movie called Time Loop by Andy Samberg. I think it's Time Loop. The guy from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
That's it. Yeah.
It's like an island vacation one. It's not.
No, it's a wedding one. It's a
oh,
wedding.
that
Anyway.
okay. Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet.
It's so good, but they do like similar stuff. But also like they have the scene where they just cause mayhem because like why not, and like kill themselves on purpose a whole bunch of times because of existential crisis. And I was like, we didn't do any of that stuff. We're so straight-laced. We're like, let's get through the time loop.
Everything did not just that one with Andy Samberg, but Bill Murray does that. Legends of Tomorrow did that. The Map of Tiny Perfect Things is another great example of a time loop. I love that movie. I just love time loop movies. They all go through that, the steps of figuring things out, going through the same thing every single day, and then they get tired and just mess everything up, and then they figure out their life.
I mean, Dan, I feel like you just described real life. I'll be honest.
Yeah, they're screwing things up as your 20s.
You know, I can learn to play the violin at any time. I'm just not choosing to.
Fair enough. I feel like we didn't need to do the screwing things up on purpose because we were really good at just screwing everything up.
All the time.
I was incinerated. Like, that was horrible. And, like, then you played it in reverse. Like, that's so sadistic. Not the pop that everybody else got. He's like, and then time rewinds and you experience it again.
Yeah, I was just trying to find.
I was like, oh, man.
I was just trying to find good ways to keep it interesting as we reround time a whole bunch. But you guys did fall into just about all the traps I had. So I felt like I didn't.
We found them. We'd done all.
Yeah, I didn't feel like I'd dropped too much extra preparation time this time, which was great.
By the end, he was like just taking pity on us. I felt like it was just like,
please get it done.
Have you ever played the video game Neo? It's like an ancient samurai kind of video game where there's like English colonists or whatever, and it's like you're this samurai who's a prisoner, but it's like really difficult. So like every like 5 steps you face enemies, and every time you face the next enemy you die. Like, and it sends you back to the beginning. So it's like go die back, go die back, die back, and it's like the exact same thing.
That's like that castle game we used to play on Dad's really, really old game system. What was that game called, Logan?
The Little Viking?
No, it was like this knight, and he would try and go into the castle.
Oh, Dragon's Lair.
Dragon's Lair.
Yes.
Dragon's Lair sucked.
Wow.
Yeah,
man, I love Dragon's Lair.
Dan got that before Logan did, at least on my computer.
Yeah, so many ways to die.
Too. Yeah, but yeah, it's just like that. Like, even though it wasn't a time loop game, very similar vibes. Like, I was playing today for like 25 minutes playing Neo, and I like died like 17 times in 25 minutes, and I was like, this just feels like I'm not doing it. I can't do it. I just gave up. Almost friggin' rage quit at my TV screen.
Can't believe you had 25 minutes to play video games.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's
what
accurate. You were grooming a dog.
Bowie.
But speaking of the repeat, I thought like the best thing, and like really like hats off to Sarah. It's not in the podcast that it's your idea, but give you the credit for it. where we like had to rapid fire till the end.
I don't get the credit for it. Just kidding, it's fine.
You get the credit for it now. I mean, that was a great
behind
idea.
Behind the scenes moment. But it was a really great idea, and I actually had a lot of fun with that. Like surprisingly, that tedious, annoying stuff was like the most fun, because by the end, I was really good at saying exactly what Zoo did to get out of Beth, and I was like, go.
You want to know what the inspiration for that was? It felt like it would be something the BTS would do on Run BTS.
Gosh dang it.
When you suggested it, I was like, yeah, that's...
Yes.
How do our podcast recordings always come back to what BTS would do?
See, for me, I thought it came from a sketch. There's a YouTube sketch that does that, where they do a tongue twister, and you have to get through the entire tongue twister, and if you mess up, everyone has to start over again. So I thought
there's an episode of Run BTS where they have to sing a children's nursery song that was played earlier in the episode, and if they miss like a word or they sing a melody incorrectly, they have to start over. So
I don't think I've seen this episode yet, but they do one later where they have to sing a song and they each get a line, and they only get to listen to it one time before. And if they get it wrong, they have to start over from the beginning.
So what we'll do is we'll get like these bracelets for like Logan that just say like WWBTSD, like what would BTS do? And then he could just like look at that as like a touchstone when he's DMing and be like, how would BTS handle this?
Look,
they have
those
7,
BTS
we have
videos
6.
have millions and millions of views. So
I'm saying,
You're right.
Yeah,
I'm not. There are definitely worst inspirations when it comes to creating content, but it would require me to actually like learn what BTS would do. Otherwise, my only thought is probably a cool dance move.
Sarah and I can just be consultants. It's fine.
Yeah, as an inside
BTS
viewer, I
review
can tell you that it's it requires like numerous hours of intense study, constant video scrolling before you become a BTS expert.
Leon and I did actually study their faces so that we'd be able to tell them apart.
So it is just like WWJD, but there's 7 people.
Exactly. To both of you.
One thing I've been wondering about is, what does BTS stand for? Is it boys that sing? Is it behind the scenes? What the heck does it mean?
Sarah, you're going to say it better than I am. Which basically means like...
Okay, what does that mean?
Bulletproof Boy Scouts.
Bulletproof Boy Scouts.
But it's actually
We need a new name.
Bravo.
We need a new name. We're gonna be the bulletproof badass heroes. Like, yeah.
The BBB.
They're
Or the BBH.
protecting their generation against like the criticisms of society.
Their music's very uplifting.
So bulletproof.
Interesting.
Okay, well, this is not a BTS run podcast, but let's go back to the session that
Not
we
a sponsor.
actually just recorded, right?
Just a fan.
I actually am, before we do move out of here, I'm just really shocked that there's episodes of BTS Run that Sarah May has not seen.
There's only like 10 at this point.
No.
I can't watch them during work as easily as like I could the couple weeks when I binged the majority of them, because you have to watch the subtitles.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite things from the episode was that I felt like it was like really collaborative. Like we all had to actively participate in like the planning, and we all got turns to say like, well, I think this is what we should do now.
And we tried it and blew up and tried to
because someone would say something and then like part of it would work, part of it would go wrong. Someone would say something, part of it would work, part of it would go wrong. And I would like to brag for a minute and say that like I think that my main plan of events was the one that lasted the longest before something went wrong.
Yeah.
But I also could be totally misremembering. I was so mad when the cart blew up and I was like, no, my investigation skills, I didn't use them. It was
From memory, the projection idea was your idea. The sneaking around the side of the Capitol building was your idea. What else? The trying to find the cart afterwards and like the ways to defuse it was like you and Dan. You had a lot of really great stuff. I mean, I just was, like a bug with a projector strapped to my back.
Hey, look, you had the
with.
ultimate power of being able to come back when we were doing everything really fast and quoting exactly what happened.
But you know what?
Impressive
Actually, like Logan, I've got to say, you know, we talked a lot about like Zoo's growth and like what I wanted to do with his powers. And I feel like this has been like these 2 sessions have been like the most interesting like uses of his powers we've ever had. And it's been really kind of cool to like, I didn't rampage as a grizzly bear in this session.
You couldn't.
I couldn't. Like, I literally every time I tried, it was like, you're Ragnar with human eyes. You're
Oh my gosh, that one was so funny.
abomination. We have to do a TikTok video of just a Christmas beetle with my eyes and mouth saying the Ragnar line.
Yeah. Just
that
get
filter.
the video and then use the filter.
Yeah, 100%.
Incredible.
We have to do it because it's like exactly perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that was horrific.
I really loved Dan when we collaborated with the bomb in the cart.
Yes,
That was like some of my favorite like role playing and planning that we did.
Where we were taking a cart out and we were trying to get it into the river. That was so fun. Now, I do have to say, I was so happy that I wasn't confined to the ship. I was so afraid that everyone was gonna keep me in the ship. But yeah,
It's so hard to work with your character because like
It's so
my
hard for a
character
10-year-old.
and Sarah May's character, like other than Effie's character and maybe like Chaos.
I feel like Van
right?
Helsing just doesn't care because Nathan doesn't really care.
Right. But like as like, you know, 20 to 30 something year olds heroes, it's really difficult for our characters to be like, sure, let's send the 10-year-old boy into the cart with the explosives.
but
this
that's
time it was
exactly
like-
what you did, and let me explode multiple times.
It was fine because we knew you'd come back, so it was like we can
I
send
cried
him.
for you, okay?
It was nice to know that he couldn't die.
That you couldn't die, right? Like, but when your head, oh my gosh, can I
The
say
first time it happened.
the moment my heart stopped was when your head got blown off, because it wasn't even just like, and then you were shot in the head. It was like your head is blown off of your body, like you're dead. I was like, no, we killed a child. The teacher in me broke. I was like,
yeah.
oh shit, I'm going to hell.
I was
Like, that was
absolutely
it.
terrified.
I basically assumed that Dan had spoken to Logan and was like, my character's not getting enough respect. Please kill them.
Yeah, I was the same. I was like, oh, we drove him to it. We drove him to self.
No,
Dan went from being the DM to being the character that died first.
Yep.
to be honest, I have had characters that died within like the first or second session. That's because I built them and I didn't really like how it worked out. So
Yeah.
But this one, no, I love Ralph. So
Well, I mean, you
I
also
think
Ralph
didn't
was
get
great.
that time
Role-playing
like
Ralph.
we did. Like, you gave us time and we did the practice time where we, like, tested out different characters. Because, like, you know, we don't talk about it openly, but, like, this is Nathan's second iteration of character and Sarah May's, right?
Mhm.
And then, and also Logan's. Because, Logan, you had the old wizard bloke. at the
Reginald.
beginning.
Yeah, Reginald.
Cult leader.
Yeah, we had Reginald, we had Mary Poppins, and we have, what was it, Zip Bop? I loved
Vipvop.
The human
Vip
Vip
fly.
Bop. Yes.
The
It was
human
so awesome.
swarm of flies.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
still hope we see him as like an NPC or a boss sometime. Just
That would be
kind of-
cool.
It's just
I do kind of
voiced
feel
by
like-
Nathan.
With Vipvop, maybe the way that I play Van Helsing might have been better suited towards someone more silly like Vipvop, but
That's okay.
while I was
I like the way you
practicing
do Van
Vipvop,
Helsing.
I never really got the feel for the character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because you haven't had a chance to play with it, like, you know, this is your first like play with Ralph, so I can see why. Like, that sounds weird because Ralph is a 10-year-old boy and you're a 35-year-old man. But
We had
One
one
that just
session
made
we
it
did.
weird.
We had one session with Ralph, the New
yes,
York one.
yes, the
Yeah.
New York, the Hotel Clinton. Oh my gosh, that was great. I have to find that. I found the recording for one of the episodes for it, but I can't find them all.
The Zoo
Anyway.
and Ralph content in that like playthrough session was
Yes.
fun.
That was fun.
That's fine. Zoo's gonna come around. I think now that Ralph has like died so many times, I think Zoo's gonna come around to Ralph and be like, "You are a hero, little buddy." Like that
Yes!
kind of- the reluctant mentor.
I feel like
Anyway.
it's like Dan, I know that you originally were like, oh, Chaos is the mentor for Ralph, but I feel like instead it's been like, well, Chaos can't be the mentor right now, so every single other person on the ship is going to mentor Ralph in some way.
Well, it's been like you've been his like mentor / babysitter.
That's
kind
very
of
true.
person,
Char
like, where
has.
you're like mothering him, and then Zoo is like, "Shut up, go away. I don't like you." Which
You
makes
mean you've
no
been the
sense,
father?
'cause Yo, damn! What kind of relationship do you have with your dad? Dad, like,
No.
he's spilling the tea
Just
right
kidding.
now. What's going on?
All right, we're unpacking some stuff.
Jump into this. Yeah, but it's been really cool to see that change and that shift. I think that Ralph will get a little bit more playtime and respect from the crew moving forward. But it's so difficult because you're a kid and we want to protect him.
Well, yeah, I think it's been really difficult because it started out with Ralph not really fitting in because he was antagonistic at the beginning, but that was because he thought that you were the villains. And so he was chasing you around, and then all of a sudden, as he was actually kind of moving into the group, you found out that he was a 10-year-old boy. And then all of a sudden this happened, and he died. And so it's been really fast-paced, and so...
It's been a roller coaster.
Yeah, it's been a huge roller coaster with Ralph.
But it's interesting because somehow along that you decided we weren't the villains. And looking back at the content, I see no reason for you to believe that. Like, we definitely do not come off like competent heroes in all of this.
Competent heroes, no, but villains and what Ralph thinks of as a communist, you weren't that either.
Yeah.
So
good-natured morons, I think.
Yeah.
Speaking of new-ish characters, though, the new character that was introduced, Mr. Mowini.
Oh, yes.
And I leaned into the microphone there for anyone that's listening.
But you forgot to pronounce his name wrong.
No, I figured that I could pronounce it correctly outside of character.
Nice.
But I thought that was such an interesting like twist to the time loop. Because a lot of time loop shows, you know, people don't really understand why there's a time loop. And there is a lot of like time being spent getting new hobbies or interacting with people in different ways when there's not threat of death or you know different stuff like that. So I thought that it was really interesting to introduce someone who was setting the rules. So like we couldn't just lull around and not do anything, because if we wanted time to reset, then we had to actually be putting effort in. Otherwise Mr. Mowini would be like, oh, this doesn't really seem like you're being heroes, or you know, there's that risk that he's not going to help us, and if we fail, then like that's just it.
Yeah.
Yes, the intertemporal Mr. Rogers of the group.
And I think
I feel like he's evil.
So he's definitely a cross between Q and Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, Q, that's his name.
And this is a character that Dan and I workshopped a while ago.
Yes, in the middle of the first season.
Jeez.
Like,
yes.
When will we bring this character in? And this just felt like the right time.
And I was so happy to see him.
He doesn't seem menacing like Mr. White does. He
no,
sort of
but
seems
he has
more
his own
like
agenda.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's something we don't know about this guy. He's in it for something, and I feel like I kind of want to see what's going to happen with him. Whereas, like, Mr. White, I'm like, meh, I get it. You're capitalist greed. You're like you're a metaphor for corporate America. I understand, right?
Yep.
Whereas Mr. McWitty, I'm like, what is your deal? Like, you just want to raise super kids? Like, what's going on? Like, are we all going to have, like, a softball team? Like, what's going to happen right now?
I get kind of, like, man, who is the person at the end of Loki? Khan. I kind of get Khan vibes from him, where he's like, I've been watching the universe for a really long time, and like now you're here to replace myself, or like the Watcher at the end of What If,
totally.
When he's like, I'm going to assemble the ultimate group because something went wrong.
That's what I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm like, he's gonna like because he came in as like our team started to take the like approach of we're gonna fix history. So I'm like, the Super War, however that went down, he's like looking for like the A team to like fix the timeline or something. So
I am
like,
really
I could see that.
Like interested in going super far into the future and seeing like what's different and like interacting with some of that stuff. I feel like me as someone who is a fan of this universe that we've built, I'm like, that's the fiction that I want to read.
Right? I'm kind of like, especially, you know, like this has been like, we made a really intense choice and like we haven't, like we've seen some repercussions. We know like, holy crap, it's a lot of maintenance. But like, it would be cool to go to the future now and be like, what is the consequences of screwing with the timeline, that kind of stuff. Because like the idea of time travel being so rampant, which is, you know, part of the storyline, to me says like we can't be the first people to try and screw with the timeline, which obviously that's what we've been correcting for the past like year and a half. So I kind of want to see the world where that happens. And I'm like, Logan, you know, write all this stuff down, like the crazy McQueenie stuff. See some crazy shit going down. But like, I imagine that you have some very interesting ideas for what McQueenie is gonna put the crew through next. Like, we're gonna experience stuff that we're like, well, this is kind of weird. Like, this is different to what we're usually experiencing. And in the background, it's just McQueenie being like, now experience Huns in, you know, 21st century Paris. Like, go. Misplaced cultures, that kind of stuff could be really cool. Like, yeah, it'd be interesting. Like, kind of like the Joan of Arc in modern day France was kind of interesting. You know, I wouldn't mind seeing some more of that. That was cool. Anyway, but yeah, McQueenie is definitely interesting.
History, Logan would love to hear a little bit about the history in this episode.
Yeah, so
let's get into that.
You actually put me in a little bit of an awkward position where I had to start figuring out what alternate history looks like, assuming that the Page Act didn't pass in 1875. So I was looking at the history that comes up, and around 1875 and going forward, the amount of anti-Asian sentiment does not get better in America, which I'm sure is shocking to no one here. The labor
what about
parties,
between 2016 and 2020? I mean,
yeah, the labor parties in America at the time, not political parties, but parties of organized labor, to be clear, actually had a lot of distrust and dislike for the Chinese immigrants, as they were often used as scabs or strike breakers that they could be hired in replace for union workers. And it came to a head.
It's like in Newsies.
Yeah. Yeah. Newsies is a great primer on labor relations, I suppose.
Can you tell I'm from Utah when my immediate thought when you say a scab or labor strike, it goes to Newsies and nothing else?
I mean, that was my first exposure as well.
You're also from Utah.
I'm also from Utah. Love Newsies. Great movie.
It's great.
Christian Bale's best performance.
I don't know. His performance as Howl in Howl's Moving Castle is prime.
Okay, fair.
I'll have to check that out. Anyway, so between 1875 and 1882, the Treaty of Burlingame, which prevented the U.S. and China to put restrictions on immigration between the two, was effectively rescinded and renegotiated to just say reasonable restrictions. The United States at this time was a much more powerful power, and China was in a position of weakness that it had not really experienced before in the world. You know, you were dealing with stuff like the Opium Wars at the time. In 1880, the Congress tried to pass a law that would prevent all immigration, but it was overturned, vetoed by the president, because he said, yeah, this wasn't a reasonable restriction. And so instead, in 1882, they came up with the Chinese Exclusion Act as passed, which prevented immigration just for 10 years, which I guess was considered reasonable. And that later got extended over and over again. And so there was actually no Chinese immigration at all until much, much later.
Yeah, wasn't it that they just made them jump through a whole bunch of hoops to make it as difficult as possible to come over?
specifically, anything that was excluded were skilled and unskilled laborers and anyone employed in mining. So the only people that got through were like diplomats, people like that. It was this, as opposed to the Page Act, which was like 1 million hoops and specifically for women.
Yep.
This was almost a full no. If you're from China, you can't come to America, which sucks.
Yeah.
So for the podcast episode we just did, that act was the one that like Page was opposing, right?
Right.
On the behest of Mr. White.
Yeah, Mr. White, is our capitalist stand-in, and
Right.
there was actually some opposition from, what's the best term, corporate interests at the time to the Exclusion Act, because Chinese citizens could come in and work for much less. So even though the law passed by a measure of like 200 to 30 with 50 abstaining, so it was very popular, the people that didn't want it at the time were mostly corporate interests, and the strongest push for more Chinese immigration restrictions was from California, where they had the most Chinese citizens. So the idea was changing Page to be an uncompromising champion of immigration freedom would have this sort of effect, because it was his constituents that were most represented in closing off Chinese immigration.
Right.
And Pastor Rhoda, who you just barely met in passing, was also from California, one of the great outspoken proponents of free immigration and Chinese freedom.
Every time you say Pastor Rhoda, all I hear is Master Yoda, and I'm like, I know it's different, dude.
I hear pasta rota, and then I'm like, pasta sounds good.
So Logan, I mean, we kind of left it with like we succeeded at the speech, but what do you think? I mean, are we gonna have succeeded in like blocking the Chinese Exclusion Act? Like,
so it's important as we're building this story that Mr. White's been working like nonstop since you guys left to try and keep this open. And this is my way of trying to explain how this sort of massive change could happen.
right.
Because any one individual point in history is not enough to make change happen.
Yeah.
It's over a period of months and years. And I mean, one option that we could have is, like I said, I believe it was it starts with a G. There was another act in 1992, the Geary Act, that renewed the Chinese Exclusion Act. So I hope you are ready for Washington, D.C., 1892.
Oh, come on.
This is basically our life now. We're going to try and keep
We're never
this.
leaving Washington.
This is the rest of the podcast, is just opposing every single bill that comes up in Washington, D.C.
Oh my gosh. I can't even. I want mech dogs. Bring me back to mech dogs.
There was actually another guy that came up in the podcast that I wanted to just give a historical shout out to, because he's kind
Matthew?
of awesome. No,
Matthew?
not
So
Matthew.
is it
Matthew
the
got his own
was it
tribute
the
ad.
Asian assistant, or not assistant, the Asian man that was by Paige the whole time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Young Wing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Dope
actually
Dope name.
Yes.
So I was
Young
trying to
Wing's
come up with
pretty cool.
NPCs for you to interact with in the crowd. And I was like, I need to find Chinese names that don't sound like stereotypical Chinese names. And like everything I was finding from that time period are these very Chinese names. I'm like, I can't use any of these because I'll sound incredibly racist.
Even though they're historical figures.
Even though they're
That's
historically
that's
accurate.
the bane of a historical podcast.
Yeah, no. So I'm really glad that you guys didn't decide to go the route of working the crowd, because then I have to come up with a lot more voices and it's really difficult. But Young Wing is amazing. This guy is so cool. So he was born in 1828. He was really old by the time this happened. he went to a school run by an American minister in order to learn English, because his parents were like, hey, if you learn English, you're going to have a much better career. This American pastor, he was dying. He was in really bad health. And he offered to take anyone who wanted to go back to America. And according to Young Wing's grandson, Frank Wing, listened to a speech he gave about this. His grandpa was the first person to raise his hand and get up and go. He went to America, graduated high school. The the Savannah Women's Association paid for him to go to Yale, which you're like, oh, that's a weird thing to do.
Yeah.
This is a time when Christianity and being like a missionary was really big. And Young Wing was Christian. And so they're trying to say, oh, look, this is this awesome Chinese young man. We'll support him and spread Christianity. So he gets to go to Yale. He graduates Yale and he heads back to China. He basically has to relearn Chinese because he encultured himself so much into the American culture. He's forgotten most of his Chinese.
I get that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why you don't sound Australian at all anymore.
Well, yeah, that. And also I did the same thing with Maltese when I was when I went to Australia when I was like 5. After living in Malta for a few years, I refused. I full dove into the Australian culture and ditched all Maltese. And so I barely know Maltese now. So yeah.
I had no idea about any of that about you. That's cool.
I got racially
not cool that you
bullied.
forgot.
And
that's not cool.
We're
I'm
in
sorry.
Australia now. We speak English to my parents, and they went, "Screw it! All right, now we could just talk about Keith in Maltese."
It's cool that you knew Maltese, but
yeah,
it's not cool that you lost it.
I mean, I can tell you,
sorry.
I still understand some stuff, but yeah, it's definitely faded. Anyway, but I get what's going on with this guy. You get to a new place, you're different, you try and put yourself as much in the culture as you can. Your old stuff fails. I get it. Anyway, that's the point of that.
This is all well and good, but I wanted to point out that, Logan, you said that this guy was really old by the time this happened, but you said he was born in 1829.
1828.
1828. He's not even 60.
1882. It feels old to me.
I mean, that's old for the time, right? That's not a spring chicken. He's not.
I'm just saying we do have part of our listenership that's in that age range.
A very small.
We do not exclude anyone. There's no ageism here.
Yeah. All right. All listens are valuable. Fine. Even if it's through a hearing aid.
I've been holding on to that since the moment that you said it, because if I didn't stop thinking about it for a second, I was gonna forget it. So I had to say it before I forgot.
Oh, it just seems like such a long period of time to me.
But anyway, so he goes back to China. He learns Chinese.
Goes back to China. He has to relearn Chinese, but he's so good at what he does. And his grandson Frank said he studied engineering, math, and science, and he was bad at all of it, but he was really good at English. But he was so good and so valuable that when there was a revolution occurring in China, the Qing dynasty was being overthrown by the Taiping Revolution, that he was very high up in this Taiping Revolution. He was a revolutionary his whole life. He was always working to reform China. And he had, in fact, put forth these 7 proposals to the Taiping Revolution to say, this is how a government needs to run. The Qing Empire was really, really sort of restrictive. It wasn't in a place where it was creating very well or governing very well. And the Taiping Revolution did turn down his 7 principles, but they offered him a place of nobility and a lot of money. He turned them down because he felt like he didn't deserve a noble position, which is good, because the Taiping Revolution failed, and the Qing dynasty managed to hold on to power. The general in the Qing dynasty who overthrew the Taiping Revolution ended up becoming the viceroy of China, and he called Young Wing for a meeting. Young Wing was pretty sure he was going to go get his head chopped off. But instead, this general asked him to go to America and get the things needed to make an armory. In this case, an armory meaning a factory where the Chinese could make American-style arms and ammunition. Young Wing convinced him to extend this instead of making an armory, to make the first machine shop in China, and effectively started the Industrial Revolution in China.
Dude,
he was 35.
Accomplished a bunch.
Yeah. He was 35 years old.
It's pretty crazy.
And that is what he was done. And he wasn't done yet, because he took this guy who sort of was his patron.
Benefactor? Yeah.
And he convinced him to start the Chinese education mission, where Young Wing got to take young men and bring them to America to learn like he had. And it was not very many. It was about 5 boys a year that he got to bring across to America. And originally it was mostly family members, because he couldn't convince anyone else to let their children leave for 15 years to come to America to learn. Something really clever he did is, instead of having them all room together, he had them all board with American families. Nice. So that they had to learn.
The first study abroad.
Yeah, I was going to say, he did the first exchange program.
Yeah, no, it's nuts. There ended up being 120 of these boys that he called the 120 blessings. One of them became the Prime Minister of China. One of them became the first president of a major Chinese university. Wow. A ton of them became powerful military and educational and ambassador leaders for China.
Chinese Illuminati.
These 120 blessings made a huge difference in Chinese development and how China and America related.
Man, now I feel like I wish I had interacted with this guy a little bit more.
Yeah, this guy's really cool.
Logan's like, no, I couldn't say his name.
Yeah, no, I was very nervous, and I'll probably always be very nervous about portraying people of a different ethnicity, but this guy is so cool.
Yeah, totally.
He came very close to becoming the leader of China in 1898, I believe. He was part of what was called the Red Dragon Conspiracy, which was trying to overthrow the imperial rule and start something closer to democracy. Wow. And he'd been the unelected leader that they were going to set up if they succeeded. But they didn't.
They did not.
And he was basically exiled and tried to go back to America, where he'd been a naturalized citizen. But in 1872, that was revoked, and he had to sneak back into America. But he did get to see the graduation of his son from Yale, and lived his last few years in America quietly.
Good for him. Probably retired to Florida, played some shuffleball. It was great.
Well, he was living in poverty and was not, technically a legal citizen because bad things. Yeah. But this guy was incredible. And technically, he had left America the year before the Chinese Exclusion Act. But I believe if things had been different, as in our alternate history, he would have been around to continue fighting for Chinese rights.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Young Wing, he's amazing. And I love him a lot.
Very cool.
Now I love him too.
Yeah, now I'm want to get to know this guy a little bit as an NPC, but well.
Keith's like, well, we're going back to DC anyway.
I don't want to go to DC bad enough to try and track down Young Wing. I'm telling you, I'm just
no. He didn't die until the early 1900s. We've got chances.
Oh, okay.
can
He's gonna
I'm
be
sure
the new
we've seen
Jake
him
Bob. Young Wing becomes the new Jake Bob.
That would be cool.
Thanks for being in that time travel story, in that time loop story, and not making me portray this awesome guy who I would have probably butchered in some way. Though he did
Fair
speak
enough.
perfect English, so I didn't have to come up with any dumb accent for him.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, it's I was pleasantly surprised with how well this one went. It was a really good session.
Yep.
And like
I had a lot of fun with it. I had so much fun with it.
I feel like we started to get things right just as it would have become really annoying had we kept getting things wrong. Like it was like the perfect timing.
Well, see, I think that the first 2 iterations were just us trying to figure it out. And then after that, it was like, okay, we got this. Let's get a plan. And this is where we're going.
Yeah.
So we didn't spend a lot of time, bumbling around. And I think I was going to say this earlier. I think having someone there to show us the rules really helped.
Yeah, that definitely is what got us to skip over the tropes.
Yeah, it focused us.
Yeah. Did anyone else feel like everybody was after Beth? Like
oh my
did
gosh,
we not matter
yes.
at all? I felt kind of slighted. Like no one really wants me. They just want my car. Like come on.
Well, the
I, for one,
cyborgs
think
wanted to
that
kill
Beth
you.
is worth it.
I mean, yeah,
She's
Beth
special.
Beth is legit, but like it turned like every time we turned our back, someone was stealing Beth. And I was like, guys, can we install central locking in this thing?
Okay.
Biometrics.
I am a little bit I really, as someone who thinks about a lot of the little details, I absolutely am I thought it was just assumed that we would all be extremely safe and secure and that Beth would be extremely safe and secure. But no, Beth thinks for herself sometimes and is not extremely safe and secure.
Well, doesn't think for herself anymore.
Blowing up.
No, that's true.
Yeah, that's got me worried.
Let's talk about
agreed.
that.
Yeah, I'm like, that's the one thing where
it wasn't
survivor's
an
guilt.
unconditional win.
Yeah, kind of survivor's guilt, kind of that idea, yeah, Sarah, where it's like not an unconditional win. I feel like we sacrificed a bit of our good to accomplish it. You know what I mean? Like to do this, we took a sentient being's choices away, and I mean, it's very compelling. And the biggest thing for me is I really want to explore what that does, because we essentially stole her purpose. And that to me was oh my gosh, we gave her a really shitty one in its place. Be our friend.
I mean, there could be worse purposes.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm really interested to see what happens with Beth, because I feel like it's gonna be one of those things where for me anyway, I'm gonna walk away and be yeah, whatever, it's fine. Beth is still happy, we're still happy. But eventually it's gonna start to nag at me. Zuman's gonna start to miss being hit over the head with bags of Doritos. And he's gonna be this isn't really Beth.
Well, I just feel like this is leading towards the inevitable ending where we fight ourselves from a few months earlier before we were picked up.
Oh, are we the darkest timeline?
And then we have to fight ourselves before we became corrupted by time travel.
Yeah.
Are we the baddies?
Yeah, this is the darkest timeline, everyone.
Yeah, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised actually. Let's see who loses a limb. We should all tape goatees to our faces.
Yes.
So, oh my gosh.
Hardcore contour.
That just reminds me. Okay, bring back to Star Trek. So I'm wearing a Star Trek shirt today, from the episode Mirror Mirror, and my daughter asked, "Why does it say Mirror Mirror?" So I had to explain the episode there and explain, you could tell the good guys from bad guys because the bad guys had goatees.
Yeah,
and my wife's goatees so nefarious.
Yeah,
that is
Nathan,
that
you
is.
have a goatee right now?
No,
He just has a beard.
I have a
But he could shave a goatee just for this recording session.
I could do it. We could all
When
do
I
it.
saw you earlier, it definitely looked like you had just a goatee.
The episode
Well,
Mirror
it's darker
Mirror
than the
is where
rest.
the evil goatee thing came from.
Yep.
That's
if you
so
hear
funny.
that in any other bit of pop culture, it came from Mirror Mirror.
Nice.
That's where
I didn't know that. I just knew it from Community.
Yeah, me too. Oh,
yeah,
man.
I definitely am waiting for everything to implode.
Yeah, how did that feel for you? Because like as the voice of Beth, I feel like you're the one who most channels her personality. So like, how did that feel for you?
I honestly think doing anything unexpected is just really fun to roleplay. So like, I personally felt like it was a really good narrative choice. I thought that it could bring about some really interesting consequences. And so I had a lot of fun, like role-playing that both as Shar and Beth. And I think that, like, as I said, like, I feel like it just builds some anticipation because it's not something that you think is going to, like, fly, you know? Like, you don't think that it's going to pass as okay for the rest of the season.
Right.
And
it's
so,
going to come back to bite us at some point.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see how it resolves.
Yeah, it's interesting because like ever since the end of the first session of this season, right? In the first season, I didn't give two shits about like what my choices how they would affect the future, which has been like what this season has been about, right? Is like how do our choices affect the timeline? And so after the first session, I was like, no, go back a bit to like just do what you want to do and not worry about like Logan will figure it out, right? And so when we did this, and like originally my choice was one of the three to do it, Sarah, Jean's, Effie's choice was an accident, and then Shah's choice. Zoo's choice was just like he was getting frustrated with Beth not getting it, and so he was like, screw it, just do it. Which is exactly how Keith was feeling at the time. And then later I was like, oh shit, what did I do? And then
You actually messaged me and you're like, I don't like this.
Yeah. I was like, what did we do, Dan? Should we try and erase it? And then like later on, then I was like, oh, no, that'll be good. That'll be fine. It'll be compelling. But like in the moment, I gave no thought to the consequences of eradicating a sentient being's free will. And that's mostly what's got me questioning myself, not Zoo.
Yep.
Anyway.
I had a lot of mixed feelings about that because, for one, Beth is very near and dear to me. Playing Vic. I love Beth, and having Beth's free will taken away and being replaced by this need to protect or befriend the team. I just had a lot of mixed feelings around it.
Yeah, I wonder like if Vic is gonna come back and make a cameo and be like, "What did you do to my Beth?" Like,
I'm gonna kill you all.
I would love that,
especially because like at the beginning, like Vic was completely unaware of Beth's sentience, and like it took them like really getting into it to like become aware of it, and then once they were aware of Beth's sentience, they were really like that. It was a fast bond and a fast override of like the previous miscommunications. So I'm sure Vic would be very
upset
with the choices of the team they left in charge, right? Anyway, so yeah, that's one thing I'm looking forward to, like seeing resolved. I mean, like whether we go back to Washington for a future act or the act doesn't pass Washington, or whatever else happens, it's going to be interesting to see the ramifications of that choice. And also like the fact that we know some stuff about our NPCs now, like what they would do that they don't know we know. Like they don't know, like Mr. White doesn't know we know that Mr. White is after Beth.
Yep.
And like even Jerome doesn't know that we know that he would very readily betray us. You know? So like there's a lot of
trust no one.
I don't feel like it's Jerome betraying you so much as you betrayed
we definitely betrayed Jerome's institution. I get that. Like, but like that Jerome would immediately resort to apprehending us, right?
Yeah.
So like
Jerome was
slow.
Of stuff. We can beat him.
He was out of breath very easily.
But man, I bashed him over the head how many times with the flat of my sword? Yeah, he did not go down.
He's sturdy, but he's slow, but he's sturdy. But like Jerome's big villain was like the fancy man. Like I don't, And like forever they will be the fancy men in my mind because they're always just dressed a little too nice. But like, you know, I'm much more afraid of the one-breasted man's army of Effies than Jerome's fancy men.
One thing I'm wondering about is where did these fancy men come from? Because Jerome said that his operation was just basically him and Vic.
Yeah, but that had been like years theoretically in the past.
It could have been years. It could have also been just a few minutes because of time travel. We don't know that. So
we don't know.
But yeah, and then
I do have a good answer for that. But you don't get to hear it right now.
We don't get to hear it.
Yeah, you don't get it right now. But I do have a good
But if we
answer
think
for
about it, so we know we have Mr. White we got to watch out for. We have Jerome that is trying to correct what we are trying to make better that we got to watch out for. We have the one-breasted man that we don't really know his... We know he's after Effie, but we don't know his... what his
Maybe
plans
he's
are.
one-breasted because he's actually Effie's dad, and Effie like shot heart
off his other
and
breast.
so he has only one breast.
Technically, it's a one-breasted suit.
I really want
Dan,
to find
I
out
know.
the name of this person. I feel like we really need a name for the one-breasted man.
No,
Nope.
I refuse.
Yeah, but he's interesting because he's also the most violently sinister of the three,
Yes.
and he's the biggest unknown, and he has the most resources. Like Jerome, we know is trying to do good, so it's like we can kind of figure him out. Mr. White, we get the motivation for really well. Doesn't seem to have a lot of like personnel resources. It's more about like what he can do. But the one-breasted man has like access to dozens of Effies and seemingly no qualms blowing someone's head off or taking over someone's free will. So scary.
Yep.
I mean, I wouldn't spend too much time worrying about it. I doubt we'll ever see the one-breasted man again.
Oh, good. Well done. Dan, make sure you pull that piece of audio for it to come back right before the one-breasted man blows someone's head off.
I will do that.
And I'll put some reverb on it, so it'll be like, I doubt we'll ever see the one-breasted man again. And reverb. Like,
the one-breasted man! Son of a bitch!
Dang. Yep, we got some gags in the future. Anyway, so I don't know. There's a lot of really cool stuff that could be coming up that I'm looking forward to. And I hope we... I think we'll definitely pay out on those promises. I feel like that's one thing we're pretty good at is like, you know, adding these things together for a really compelling story. And we're getting better at the whole consistency thing, so that's good.
I'm I've put out a lot of strings and tried to just let you tug on what you want. So I hope we do get satisfying answers to everything. But, I will give you a very tiny insight into what I'm expecting the next arc to be, though there's still room for you to ruin it, which will make this next few weeks of study feel really dumb if you ruin it all before it actually happens, which I'm, to be frank, fine with.
Frank?
Frank? Where is he? Son of a bitch!
But if things go the way I'm anticipating they go,
which they always do.
Yeah, definitely. Every single darn time. There's an important NPC coming up who's been described historically as the walking wrath of God. And it's not who you would expect. And
is it Paige?
Googling it.
And
if
we do that, this will be a really fun and challenging arc to go into, and I've got some great ideas for you guys. So
the walking wrath of God. Oof, that's that is a serious title.
This is a historical character. Other things they were described as,
and it's like Isaiah. Jesus.
Something else.
Jesus.
Another way this character, and this is a historical person, in the actual time they were alive, they were described as Jesus Christ come again.
Wow.
In disguise.
I met that guy. Doesn't he spin a sign on like 76 or something?
Yeah, you will not see this one coming. I've been doing research on this person. I'm so excited.
You know what? I am going to ban myself from trying to find out who this is. Right now, I'm making a commitment.
It will be more fun.
Try and Google this person.
Yeah, it will be more fun to find out in the podcast.
You guys totally can.
I have no idea who that is.
Even if you tried to, you would have to find very specific resources to get it off of what I've told you.
All right.
Because this person is not nearly as well known as they should be.
It's Wikipedia.
I love those guys. I love like the random people from history that history kind of forgets. That if you find them, you're like, holy crap, this string is terrifying and very long.
Yeah. Oh, okay, and I will add, this person is a woman.
Whoa! Whoa! You got a woman who is called the second Christ. That's crazy.
And the walking wrath of God.
To differentiate her from the other semi-evil, semi-good.
Well, I mean, that depends on whether or not Logan does a good female voice. We'll have to see.
A name is helpful.
True.
I suppose if her name is gender neutral, then
we'll never know.
Anyway,
all right. Yeah, that sounds cool.
I'm excited to do more with you guys. So this has been another episode of the Fantasy Adventure Machine. Catch you next week.